You know, the 2025 G20 summit in Johannesburg was supposed to be all about global unity. But instead, the headlines, they were all about division and, well, a very noticeable empty chair. But here's the thing. While all the cameras were focused on that public drama, a totally different and maybe more important story was happening behind the scenes. So let's unpack the two very different summits that took place at the very same time.
So really, what does happen when the world's biggest economy just doesn't show up? Well, as we saw in Johannesburg, the answer isn't so simple. It doesn't just reveal these deep cracks in global diplomacy, it also shines a massive spotlight on where the real work of international relations might be heading.
This G20 was historic, and for two huge reasons. First, it was the first one ever held on the African continent, a massive deal in itself. And second, it was the first one ever to be boycotted by the United States. And that move, it sent some serious shockwaves through the entire international community.
I mean, think about it. For a group that's literally designed to bring the world's most powerful economies to the table, that empty chair was so much more than just a diplomatic snub. It was a statement. It completely reshaped the dynamic of the whole event before a single speech was even made.
So, why the walkout? What led to this? Well, this decision definitely didn't come out of thin air. It was really the climax of some sharp disagreements with the host nation, South Africa, over, well, pretty much the entire agenda of the summit.
The Trump administration was pretty clear about its objections. It brought up what were determined to be false claims about the persecution of white Afrikaners. But the big one, the real sticking point, was its rejection of what it called the summit's DEI agenda. We're talking diversity, equity, and inclusion. This was a framework that put issues like climate change, gender equality, and global wealth inequality front and center, things the administration just fundamentally disagreed with focusing on.
And the tension was just thick. You could feel it. In an official statement, a White House spokesperson, Anna Kelly, didn't hold back. She directly criticized the South African leadership. And just like that, it went from a policy disagreement to a direct accusation of blocking diplomacy.
The fallout was immediate, and honestly, it broke all the rules. The diplomatic playbook just got tossed out the window. A joint declaration, which is normally the product of days of tough negotiation, was issued on day one, with zero American input. Then, at the closing ceremony, President Ramaphosa refused to hand the ceremonial G20 gavel to a junior U.S. official, basically calling it an insult. The whole formal handover got kicked down the road to a separate, much quieter meeting later on.
And South Africa was not shy about their position. The presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya said it plainly. His statement just hammers home how seriously they took this break from tradition. From their perspective, it was a line in the sand they were just not willing to cross.
Okay, but while all that drama was dominating the headlines, a whole other story was unfolding. A much more productive one, actually. And this happened far away from the main stage. This is where we find the other G20, the one that took place in the meeting rooms and the corridors.
This really just captures the summit's total split personality. On one hand, you have the public chaos, the boycotts, the broken rules, and on the other, in these quiet corridors, you've got leaders forging major alliances and making real, actual deals.
And right at the heart of this other story were two key leaders, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Italian counterpart, Giorgia Meloni. As it turns out, their meeting on the sidelines might have been one of the most important things to happen during the entire summit.
And they didn't just, shake hands and smile for the cameras. Nope. They announced a huge new joint initiative, a strategic pact that takes aim at one of the world's most stubborn threats, tariff financing.
Prime Minister Modi's words here really show you how significant this was. This wasn't just another press release. They were framing this as a massive step forward in the global fight to pull apart the financial plumbing that lets terror networks survive and operate.
So what is terror financing exactly? Well, simply put, it's the lifeblood of these organizations. It's any kind of financial support, big or small, that allows terrorists to buy weapons, train people, and carry out attacks. So cutting off that flow of cash is absolutely critical to stopping them.
So how is this whole thing supposed to work? Well, it basically comes down to three key pillars. First, they're going to share a lot more intelligence on suspicious financial networks. Second, their financial regulators are going to work way more closely together to plug any gaps. And third, they're going to team up in global groups like the Financial Action Task Force to push for tougher international rules for everyone.
And this agreement didn't just come out of nowhere. It was a direct response to a recent terror attack in Delhi. Prime Minister Meloni actually expressed her full solidarity with India,
which really sealed this pact as a shared promise to protect their countries from a threat they both face.
All right, so let's pull these two very different threads together. We've got the public G20, which was full of division, and then we have the private, sideline G20, which saw real progress. What on earth does this split tell us about where global cooperation is headed?
And it's so important to remember that these sideline deals don't just happen in a vacuum. This partnership between India and Italy, for instance, it's built on a rock-solid foundation of economic ties. We're talking an estimated $15 billion in trade between them. That strong relationship is what makes this kind of targeted security cooperation possible. It's a natural next step.
And that right there is the core takeaway. The Johannesburg summit put a new dynamic of modern diplomacy on full display. While the big public stages are becoming arenas for conflict and posturing, the real, meaningful progress is happening more and more in the corridors, in these smaller, more focused meetings.
And this leaves us with a massive question for the future. As these big international forums seem to be fracturing, are these sideline meetings, these conversations in the corridors, are they becoming the real stage for solving the world's problems? The answer to that question might just define the next chapter of diplomacy.